Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our OmegaRecruit training today. We're going to go over best practices for recruitment. We have changed the format a little bit, so if you want to test out the Q&A section for during the webinar, you can submit questions and they'll be answered by Hannah, who is my co-host. My name is Sarah Beth Russell, and Hannah Gunderson is going to be the one in the chat there answering any questions. If you want to go ahead and submit a question with your name and what organization you're with, we'd love to see who else with us today. And Hannah also put a little icebreaker about your favorite TV show. So if you want to respond to that as well, I see several responses. See a mention of Gilmore Girls. I love that one too. With that, we'll go ahead and jump right in. Today, we are doing our webinar on OmegaRecruit, going over best practices for recruitment and kind of going through a mock recruitment. So on the agenda today, we're going to go over tips for a successful recruitment, logins and account setup, as well as main menu and features. And then we'll look at voting and reporting, as well as we'll have questions at the end. So like I said, if you want to submit any questions during the webinar, you can in that Q&A section. Hannah will be there to answer them. And then at the end, we'll kind of go over any of those that came in during the webinar. Starting off with some tips for a successful recruitment. The things that you really need to look at are logging in, practicing, and training. So with that login, you want to ensure all your users, including your voting members, so not just your admins, can log in at least 1 week in advance of whenever your recruitment dates are. If you guys are going to do trial recruitments, like do some practice recruitments in the system, you want to make sure they can log in to participate in those. So the earlier you can have your users added and log in, the better it's going to be for you guys. That way there's no last minute issues. Somebody has trouble logging in, we can fix that in advance. So by the time recruitment rolls around, they're good to go. So you want to make sure your users are logging in, and that also helps them to get familiar with the system as well. They can go in and kind of look at it if you have a practice recruitment set up. Then that kind of brings us to the next tip is to practice. So we have practice files that are in OmegaRecruit. That's kind of what we'll look at today. You can pull those directly from the application and use those to set up a practice recruitment that you can go through with your members. And that is just going to help you as an admin get familiar with the functionality on your end, as well as your users get familiar with voting on their side of things. And then training is the other thing that can help you. So we have webinars like today, as well as several resources, which we'll show you as we're going through the webinar, that can help you just be more comfortable and confident with OmegaRecruit. And that's going to help you kind of just have the most successful recruitment you can, being proactive, keeping on top of all these things and doing them before your actual recruitment begins. If you did not have a fall recruitment, if your primary recruitment is spring and you haven't set up your OmegaRecruit, or if you're new to OmegaRecruit, you will get an email that looks something like this as an activation email to set up your chapter. So this is just for if you haven't gotten that set up. Otherwise, you will get a regular login email if a previous admin has added you as a user. Now, if you already had a user access added previously and they just updated you to admin, you should be able to log into your account accordingly. Now, again, if you didn't have fall recruitment, you may not be added as a user. So then we have to a previous admin will have to add you as a user and give you that admin status. If you did do recruitment in the fall and you're returning in spring to do COB or anything like that, you'll just log in as per usual and everything should be in there ready to go. But your members, if you have any new users that you're adding before spring recruitment, they're going to get this same email. So again, if any new members came through in the fall and you're adding them for spring recruitment, or again, if your primary recruitment is in spring and you haven't added your users for the year, you'll go ahead and add them all. We'll look at how you add your users during the webinar, and they'll get this email. They'll click to create their account, fill out the information, and they'll be good to go. If they've previously logged in before, so they previously participated in voting and recruitment in a previous year, then or previous term, I should say, then they will just log in as normal. They won't have to fill out the account setup information, but you will still have to add them as a user if they aren't in the system. Today, with our practice recruitment, the things we're going to look at to help you guys, we're going to make it pretty easy. It's 3 steps. We're going to look at adding your rounds, uploading your PNMs, and uploading your parties. As we go through, we'll look at some of the extra stuff too, but those are the 3 main things that we're going to focus on when you're setting up your recruitment. Those are your like main things you need to get done: adding your rounds, uploading your PNMs, and uploading your parties. We'll go ahead and jump into OmegaRecruit. If you master reset from a previous semester, you may get this message here. All it's wanting you to do is add your recruitment dates. So you can do that at any point in time. So if you want to go in, it'll redirect you to this page. You'll go to edit chapter and pick the dates of your recruitment. We'll just go ahead and pick this weekend out here and we'll save it. And then once you're done with that, you can go back to the PNM list here. That's going to be your main get started page. If you've done a master reset and you've already put in your dates, when you log in, it should take you directly to this page. This right here, you can see when you first open it, like I said, if you've already done your master reset, put in your recruitment dates, it'll come to this here. You can see that it is step by step numbered out here. These are the practice files that you can download. So each of the steps are numbered and have a clickable link to take you to the page where you can complete them. So you can also go to those pages on the left side menu. But we'll go ahead and start with step 1. And I already have these downloaded, but if you're doing practice recruitment, you'll want to click on each of these files to get those downloaded. So we'll go ahead and start with step 1. This is adding your rounds. So as you can see, it takes us directly to the rounds page, the edit rounds page, and you're going to use the add round button here to create all the rounds for your recruitment. And you'll notice that when we're adding these, that preference flag is going to follow the last round always. So whatever round is your last one listed, that's going to be your pref round. If you delete one of them, it'll move up to whatever is now the last round. With this page, we do recommend setting up all of your rounds at the same time. So for example, we're going to create 3 rounds for this practice just to make it simpler. But the reason you want to set up all of your rounds initially, some people may have, depending on their organization, each rounds calculate differently or whatever it may be. And then also just to make sure that everything in general calculates correctly, you want to set up all of your rounds to begin with so that everything is just good to go. And then when you're setting up your rounds, you can rename them. So we're just going to do the 3 rounds. We'll call this one Open House, and then we'll call this one Sisterhood, and we'll rename this as Pref, even though it has a preference flag, just so we can see Pref there. And then you have the option for open voting or party voting. With that, open voting just means that all the PNMs available will be available on the ballot for the members to choose from. So if you do open voting, when you go in, if you have 100 PNMs, when somebody goes to vote, they will see all 100 of those PNMs in the drop down, even if they're maybe not in the party that you're currently having. So if you are having primary recruitment and you have multiple parties coming throughout the day, the party voting may be a better way to set that up. And then we'll look at how you can upload party lists, but it will then condense that list. It'll only show the girls who are in the party that you currently have open for voting. So that way, if there's like multiple Ashley Smiths coming through recruitment, but you're voting during party 3, and then you can see which Ashley Smith. Obviously, it'll also have information on there as well, but this just kind of helps break that up so it's not as hard to search through all the PNMs when your members are voting. So we'll go ahead and make sure you save that on this page. And then you'll see this here saying to go back to the PNM list page here. And as you can see, step 1 has now disappeared for that. So as you do your steps, they'll continue to disappear until you get to step 4, because you'll repeat these steps here. So, but all the other steps will disappear as you do them. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I actually set these up for parties. We are going to set these up accordingly for 12 parties and 9 parties. That's how the practice files are set up, which that information is on the setup page as well. We'll set that up so we can upload those lists. Yes, tells you here the amount of parties if you want to use these files for practice recruitment. So now we'll go to uploading our PNMs. Choose the file here. This PNM list is going to have 99 PNMs, and you'll get the green successful box here if they're good to go. If there is an error, it'll tell you right down here, and it'll tell you like what's going on exactly. You may get like a red box here if it didn't work, but it'll normally tell you what's going on. These are errors, but they don't affect the upload because they're just missing columns, but they're unrequired columns. So if they're blank, or if you don't have those columns, it's okay because they're not required for the upload to be successful. If there is an issue, it'll tell you, and it'll tell you like what row it is, so you can easily fix it. So when looking at this, the practice one is already formatted correctly, but depending on where you pull your PNM list from, you may need to reformat that to be successful for the upload in the system. If you are a university that uses ICS, then you can connect this page to your ICS and it will do an automatic upload. We'll look at how you can do that later, where you can connect that. But if you have that connection with ICS, then you'll be able to upload directly. Otherwise, you'll have to upload a file manually. And this detailed instructions here, this kind of gives you an example. So when you're looking at your PNM list, you may pull that from a third party, wherever you get your PNM list, whatever your university is using, your Greek Life uses, but you'll need to put them in these columns. You can see these are the acceptable column headers, and they do need to match exactly. So pay attention to the verbiage here and make sure that you are labeling those headers correctly. With this, you don't want to have any like formatting on there. You want to just keep it plain as possible, no like italics or bolding. That's going to make for the easiest upload. And then you do have some custom columns that you can add. So if there's something not listed here that you would like as a column, you can do custom columns up to 6. And we'll look at later where you can rename those columns. So you'll just put custom 1 and then put the data input for those columns in the fields. And then later you can rename it so that it shows correctly in the PNM list. When you are done formatting everything correctly, you'll save it as the Excel 97 2003 workbook. And then you can upload the file. Should be good to go. Again, you'll get this green successful if that is good. And then we can go back to the PNM list here. And if we close this, we can now see that all of our PNMs are listed. And if we pull that setup page back up, step 2 has disappeared. This is your main setup page, but at any point to access your PNM list, you can just close that. So, but the setup page is always right up here if you need access to that again. But this is now where you have your PNMs available. On the setup page, we're going to go ahead and jump to step 4. Step 5 here, where you upload the parties. This also has detailed instructions and examples. This one's a lot simpler. You'll just use your MIN and what party they're in. So the MIN is your is their like identification number. So when you get your list, they should come with an MIN. If not, you can label them with 1 through however many PNMs. This is just so they have a unique identifying number rather than just their name. Like I mentioned earlier, you may have multiple Ashley Smiths coming through. And so, as to not get them confused, they have their own individual number. And then with their individual number, you can put what party they're going to be in. So, you'll just have the MIN as well as the party that they're going to. So, for your first round, everybody should be coming to a party. So, you want to make sure that all the MINs have a party listed with them. If you don't put a party next to the PNM's MIN, then it'll show them as not returning essentially. It's I can't think of the exact status it gives them, but it's basically like an inactive status on the PNM list. So if they are coming back during the later rounds, you want to make sure that they have a party number listed. And this also is going to be saved as a 2003 or the Excel 97 2003 workbook. And we are going to import this for the open house round. Okay, and that is good to go. Again, just like the last one, you'll get a successful if it's uploaded and correct, or if not, it'll tell you where the error is. This is also another screen that if you use ICS, this will look a little different, and you can just import the parties from ICS. Another thing to note with this page, if parties change at any point, you can upload a new file and it will override the last one. So if an MI or if a specific PNM got changed to a different party, you can re-upload the party file with the new assignments and it will override. And you can go back to the PNM list here, or it will give you this here if you want to follow that direct link as well. And again, these last steps, they will not disappear. And once you add users, this one already has users, but once you add users as well, this step will disappear. So then now that we've added our parties, we're going to look at a few different things on the PNM list specifically. Starting out, we're going to look at over here, little hamburger menu. We called that just because it looks kind of like a little hamburger, but it is the little 3 lines on the right-hand side. We have a few different options that you can see here. We have the refresh and recalculate. So refresh, recalculate. Both of these are kind of similar. This refreshes if you have put any new information in, anything like that. And the recalculating while voting is happening, you can hit recalculate to just have the most up-to-date calculations as members are putting in more and more votes. So if you want to continue to update that every so often to see what has changed, you can use both of those to just refresh that page there. And then we have the select columns here. So this, you can select what you want to see kind of. So if you want to look at their preferred name, if you want to pull their MIN in, let's say for this one, we want to make sure we have this, but I do want the GPA, let's say, major. We're going to pull in the admin notes and make sure you have your overall score, because you want to be looking at that, as well as make sure you have all of your rounds selected. So if you have, it'll show like whatever rounds you set up and whatever you named them. So just make sure you have those selected as well. Otherwise, you won't see the scores for them. And any changes that you make, it'll pull that in accordingly. So you'll see any new columns that you pull in. Same if you deselect, it'll take any out that you no longer have on there. So the columns we have here, there's a few different things. We click the star column here. This allows you to star PNMs. You may use this for various different reasons, but you can double click and it'll star PNM accordingly. And then in the matching process that we'll look at later, you can use star PNMs and starred users to match them together. So you may star P&Ms that you are really trying to put with your best recruiters because you know the chapter really likes them. And so you put them with your best recruiters. So you may star those P&Ms, and then on your users, you may star your top recruiters. That way, in the matching process, they can get paired together accordingly. And then another one we pulled in here is the admin notes. So you can double click into that and add notes here. You can put kind of whatever you need to, whatever notes you can put in that column there, and it will update that accordingly. You can have the notes in there. And then you can also sort. So up here, if you want to search or sort, let's say we want to look at just freshmen, we can search for those. And even if that column isn't pulled in, so we don't have the column selected for what class they're in, but even if it's not, it still has that information. So if you search just freshmen, it'll show you anybody who's listed as freshmen. With that though, make sure that if there's like anything in the admin notes that says freshman, maybe it says like freshman year volleyball or something like that, then it will pull them into this search. If you want a more detailed search, you can click the little info button here and kind of do a better breakdown of that. But just be mindful of that if you pull that in. If you have anything, like if there's anywhere else where it says freshman, it may pull people who aren't necessarily in that class. And then for the sort, you can use the sort up here, or for instance, oh, I did miss one. I want the parties on here. So if we want to sort them by their parties, we can double click and it will sort them accordingly. Let's start one more for later when we look at our matching. So those are a few things you can do with the columns there. And then we also have in the hamburger menu, going back to that, the slideshow here. If you enter the slideshow after you've done anything in the search bar, it's going to only show you what's in the search bar. So this slideshow here will only show those freshmen. So if you want it to show everybody, just make sure that search bar is clear. And then you can just go through this using your tab keys, your arrow keys on your keyboard, and it will show you your P&Ms accordingly in a little like in-browser slideshow. You can click this menu over here and take anything off you don't want to see. If you guys aren't using custom columns, you may remove those to kind of clean that up, but it'll show you all of this information here. And if you need to print that, you can hit the P key on your keyboard and it'll take you to this page here, and you can just right click and print. You may need to reformat this to fit on the page. So if you are going to print it, just make sure you look at the preview and that everything looks like it fits, and change your like layout and everything to print that accordingly. And then if you need to want to go back to the P&M list, you can just hit the escape button and it'll take you right back to the main P&M list here. And then lastly, on this menu, you have your export P&Ms. This will export a list of everybody on the P&M list, as well as all of their different columns and everything. So if you add any admin notes, and then as scores start coming in, it'll show any of their like what their scoring is. So if you want to export this at the end of each round, you can do so to see like what overall scoring and what the round scoring is for each of those. And one other thing to look at, you can double click on the picture here and it'll show you the URL. So if at any point their picture changes, you need to update it, you can put their picture URL. That's not going to be like if they're the URL page of like where their picture is listed. Actually, like right click on the picture to pull the URL, and it'll be in there so you can replace it. Now, since we've looked at the P&M list, we're going to go ahead and start going through the the left-hand menu over here. Looking at this is the main thing you'll kind of look at, the P&M list. This will be your like go-to page for most of your information, because this shows you most of everything you need to see as a overview. you have your add PNM here. So we did the upload PNM earlier. If you need to add a PNM that comes in late or anything like that, you just want to add a singular one, you can fill out this information. You only need the start info, but you can put in any of the other information as well. And then you'll hit submit and it will put them in with everyone else. And then if you're doing it in mass, that's when you'll use this page here that we looked at earlier. After the upload PNMs, which we looked at, we did the upload parties earlier. We'll go ahead and upload parties for sisterhood as well. Then you have your reports here. So we have comments. This is the comments report. It's not quite as detailed as another comments report we have, but this one will show a good overview of just any comments that have come in during your recruitment, any of your rounds, anything like that, but it doesn't necessarily break it down quite as well as the other one. Then we have our recs here. If you want to do recommendations, we supplement a form here that you can click on. You can list this for PNMs to put in recommendations. But with the recommendations, you can then export that. So if you use this to have PNMs submit any recommendations, then you can export and see what has come in and for what PNMs. You have your main reports page here where we have several different reports. So we have, again, several across the top and they have various different breakdowns. So your PNM report here, you can choose to only see the active PNMs and you can also include comments here. That's just going to kind of show a brief overview of your PNMs, kind of similar to the PNM list one. If you want to pull your PNM statuses, you can see your non-actives and your actives accordingly. If you want to look specifically at your votes, you can see active PNMs or all of them, include the vote values, as well as including comments, and then you can choose what round. So if you're wanting to pull this just for open house or just for sisterhood, like if you want to pull it for each round, you can do that. And then maybe at the end of recruitment, if you want it for all the rounds, you can do that as well. The sort options here, if you do it by user, it's going to show for example, if Hannah voted on 3 PNMs, it'll show Hannah and then what 3 PNMs she voted on, what the value is, that sort of thing. If you do it by PNM, then it'll be the opposite way. It'll show the PNM's name, who all of your members voted on them and their vote values and that sort of thing. So just depending on how you want to sort that, you can try both of them. You can pull both ways. And you can pull all of these either in most all of these either in a PDF or an Excel. And then here is the other comments report that I mentioned earlier. This just gives you a little bit better of a breakdown. So you can do that by round, as well as you have sort options here for user and PNM. And then you also have the sort option for what time the comment was added as well. So if you want to pull it by that. Here we have another slideshow option. This is going to be a PowerPoint slideshow. It's not going to be quite as detailed as the in-browser slideshow, but if you prefer PowerPoint, you can pull that here. And if you're, again, pulling that each night or after each round, you can select to have your PNM pictures or include only active PNMs, whatever you're wanting to whittle that down to. And then you have your voter distribution here. You can also choose what round you're wanting to look at that for. This can help with seeing how your members are voting. So if everybody is giving really positive votes, maybe everybody is giving out the highest value. You have a lot of PNMs with high value votes, and maybe we need to be a little more harder in the voting. You can kind of talk to your members about that. So this kind of gives you like an idea. Or on the other spectrum, if you have a bunch of low votes and kind of having trouble sorting through those, this just gives you an idea of how your members are voting. And then you have your vote audit report. This one is going to be for any changes that are made. So if at any point an admin has to go in and change a vote, this shows who changed the vote, what the vote was before, what it was changed to after. If your organization maybe has different categories, it'll show what category was changed. And then of course the PNM that it was changed on and all of that. So it'll show you all that information. So that way there's just accountability for changing votes. You want to try and not change votes if possible. So that's why we say practice. That way, votes are submitted correctly the first time. But if you do have to change votes, you do have this audit report here as well to see what was changed. And then that's going to be everything under your P&M dropdown. We'll go to the user dropdown now. Here you can look at your user list. Like I said, we already have members added here. You can star your users here. This is what I talked about earlier with the matching. So if you want to star your people who are strong recruiters, or however you want to use that star system for the matching, though, it'll match together any starred P&Ms and any users that are starred. And then this is how you can also add or remove someone's admin status. You can delete members here. So if members have graduated and they need to be removed, you can delete them. And then you can also restrict users. Maybe if they're not able to vote due to member status or something of that sort, you can restrict them. And then you can also, under the user list here, click directly into a member, and they'll have a few different things you can see here. So if they voted on somebody before, it'll show their vote information, and you can filter that by each round. It'll show any comments they've made. It'll show like their profile information. If you need to add a vote for them, it'll show that here. Later when we look at voting, I'll show how you can do this because this is like a super user account. It doesn't let me add a vote here. And then you can look at their individual voter distribution as well. And you can do that for each round. So you can see how each individual user is voting. And if you need to add users, you can do that here. And it has the option for just an individual user, or you can choose to upload a file if you want to do that in mass. And then you have your user report here. This just pulls all your users. I always suggest doing this after recruitment, so then that way you have a list of everybody. So when you go to upload your users after Spring Master Reset, you at least have that list that you can then just edit accordingly. But this will also show anybody who has put in hometowns interest as well under their login information. So when they log in, they can add that to their profile for matching options, which we'll kind of look a little more at. This here is the hub. This kind of is an overview of several different numbers here. So basically it's graphs and key data points. With any of these graphs that you're looking at, you can click the little arrow button here and it'll flip it around to show you the actual data points. And you can use the little download button here to download that. But there are several different ones if you want to look at that. And then you can also delineate this by round specifically, sort it also. Then we're going to look at matching or your matching. This is not a primary function of OmegaRecruit, but it can help you kind of sort through the data in OmegaRecruit to determine which members should speak to each of the P&Ms that will be visiting during each round. There are 4 criteria you can use to generate potential matches. So we have here recommendations, starred P&Ms and members, which we looked at how we can star both of those. And then interest and hometowns. If you use those 2 features, this is what I was talking about with your users, your members, when they log in, they need to update their match profile so that that data is available for them to be matched with P&Ms. And then you'll also need to have that information listed for your P&Ms as well for interest and hometowns. For all of these items, you can select whether or not they should be used or not. So if you're not interested in matching people based on their hometowns, or if you don't have interest listed, you can unmark those. You can also choose if it's required. So basically this will match them if they have a recommendation. But if you require that they have a recommendation, then it won't just show starred members. It'll have to be, they have to be starred and have a recommendation. So it has to be required, or if you click the required, then they have to have both of the criteria for that to match. And then here you can update your max number of matches per member and per P&M. I believe this is like 0 to 99 for that. So it can go up pretty high. Now I will say the more matches that you have per member and per P&M, the more data you're going to have to filter through. If you have a larger chapter, you may need more of those options. Typically, we say 2 to 5 matches is like a good number. Again, just because the higher the maximum, the more potential matches you'll have to go through. But again, if you have a larger chapter, you may need more potential matches in order to get everybody matched with the right person. We'll just keep this at 2, and then you can choose what round you're matching for accordingly. You hit generate matches and it'll show you results. There's no recommendations in, that's why. We'll generate matches and it'll show you your result, and you can export these in Excel or PDF, but it'll show you who was matched with who. So here we have Amanda matched with Daniela, and then it tells you why, the criteria. So they both were starred members. For this one with Daniela, Hannah also has common interest with her. So you can see that if you have somebody you don't see in the list, like if you want to add a match, you can go ahead and add a member match with a PNM and save that. You can put a reason for the match as well. And then if you need to delete a match, you can just select that here and then delete the selected. And then if you hit that there, it'll show you kind of a little more on the match details. So for example, with this one for Hannah, it'll show the common interest that they have. That is pretty much it for the matching feature here. Again, you can pull this for each of your rounds. This is just something that can help you get your right PNMs and members matched together for best result. And then here we have the vote tab. We'll look at this a little more at the end, but this is where anybody will find their ballot, because this is a super user account. It doesn't show it because I can't vote through this, but we'll look at another account later where you can vote. Back to this chapter tab here, there's a few different things. We're going to go ahead and move this to open house. So we'll go ahead and open voting in party 1. And let's say you have open house has multiple parties that stretch over multiple days. You can close this at the end of each day to prevent any more votes from coming in, but you can still have each of your, like you can have it on party 6 and then just close it until the next day, and you can advance to party 7, however you want to do that. Put this back at party 1. Just make sure. And that goes for your rounds as well. I know we looked at this page earlier, but if you have like open house has a lot of different parties that span over multiple days, you don't need to make them each a round. That open house is your round, and then you can just make parties to pair with that, because you do have a max round of 20 here. So just be conscious of that when you are making your rounds. The edit chapter we also kind of looked at earlier. If you need to change any of this information or update your recruitment date, you can. You have your edit custom columns here. So this is what was mentioned earlier on the PNM upload. If you have any columns that have data that wasn't listed in the data points given, then you can use custom column and you can rename them here. So put out whatever the name you want in there and it'll update in the PNM list to say whatever you use for that column. The ICS info is here where you can connect to ICS for your automatic uploads. So once you connect, it'll, if you click on this, it'll give you the instructions on how to connect. That PNM upload page and the party upload page, you'll be able to just say import from ICS, and that'll kind of help you out. We have that integration with them. And then this page here is an important page, but also may look a little scary, but for good reason. This is your master reset page. This page will basically clear your account and set it back to before recruitment. So with your practice rounds, you will use your master reset page to reset it after each trial recruitment you may go through, or mock recruitment, and maybe after each of your actual recruitments, you may use the master reset to clear it later before the next recruitment comes into play. But you definitely don't want to be using this in the middle of recruitment. You cannot get this information back. Just be very careful when using the master reset. If you have access to multiple accounts, make sure you're doing a master reset for the correct account. Again, this will just basically clear all your information. You won't have any votes, PNMs, anything like that. Any of the data you put in will all be gone. With this, you'll still have your users. So you won't have to re-add your users after each of these, but everything else will be gone. So just keep that in mind when choosing to do a master reset or not. And then here we have our configuration page. This is going to tell you how your votes are calculated. So your votes, depending on your organization, may look a little different. The calculations, same thing. This page will kind of just give you detailed information on what's out there. And then we have the training page here. This is going to be a good guide. So kind of what we've gone over today, going through like a practice recruitment. It gives you step by step with screenshots of how to get that done, as well as a video if you want to. It's going to be similar to this webinar, but if you want to go through and refresh, you can watch this, and this just kind of takes you through that. We also have the Get Help button here. This is going to take you to our Help Center. Multiple different sections here you can look at. If you're a new officer and you want to start here, you can. If you want to look at like setup, or if you have a specific question and you want to type that in, you can type in whatever you're looking for, and it'll show you any of the articles that we have related to what you typed in. And then you can click on it. It'll give you the information. A lot of them have screenshots and everything to kind of help you navigate that as best as possible. Hannah, I'm going to go to you for questions while I pull up the voting ballot.
Yeah, we haven't had any new questions come in, but there are a few if you want to look at them and their answers in the chat. We did publish them. So some were asking about how to do master reset and why, which Sarah Beth just showed us. And y'all will do that definitely after, if you use those practice files after you're done doing your practice recruitment, you'll want to reset your account, or if it has data from fall, you're going to want to download all of that and then reset it so it's cleaned up and ready to go for spring. The other questions were just asking about the recording. So we will send a recording of this out to everybody that registered. It'll also be in the help center. So you can just share the link with anybody who maybe didn't register but maybe needs to see this. You can share that link with them. It'll probably be coming to y'all in the next 2 days. And then they were just, another question was asking about editing those parties. So just as a reminder, you can always go to the chapter tab, and then there's the different section headers at the top, and you would go to edit rounds, and you can edit your rounds and change the number of parties that you have. So far, those are the questions that we had. Oh, a couple more came in that I'm about to check. One was asking where they're going to receive the recording. So we will email it to you, and then in that email, the video will be embedded, and you can click it and it'll take you to the link in YouTube. You can also just go on YouTube and search Omegafy, and then our YouTube page, I think it's called a page, or no, channel, sorry. Our YouTube channel will come up, and then you can click in there and then you'll see it listed. So it takes us about like 2 days to edit them and upload them. So you'll probably see it at the end of this week. And then another question was, for voting, would they need to upload one specific Excel sheet for each party? So I'm assuming you're asking like how you can assign the PNMs to parties. You would, yeah, upload one Excel spreadsheet. It'll have those like identification numbers on there. It will be one column, and then the next column will be their parties. So if there's going to be 6 parties, you'll have all the PNMs listed in the left column, their identification number, and then I think the right column will have a number 1 through 6, which would assign them to a party. So that way, once that list is uploaded, when your voting members go to look at their ballot, whatever round and party you're on, they're only going to see the PNMs that were assigned to that.
And to further add to that, you'll have basically a specific Excel sheet for each round, not for each party.
Sorry, yes.
And to kind of also go off of that, what Hannah's talking about, here we did party voting for round 1. So as you can see, there's like 99 PNMs that we uploaded, but you can only see a handful. So these are the ones that are in party 1. So you're not being overwhelmed with all 99. You just have the ones that were in this party, especially if you vote after each party, which I think most people do. And then you can submit the vote accordingly. If you have a different scale, or your organization has different parameters, this may look a little different. And then you can also, if you're not sure, like if you're like, is this the right Ashley? You can click on the little light bulb icon here, and the little file will take you back to this page here. You can add a comment in here, and you can also recommend a member to be matched with. So if you talk to Ashley and you think they would actually talk really well with Hannah, you can submit that vote. And then once you submit it and you go back to the P&M list, you'll see the votes in there. I think that's it for the voting ballot. I did see a few other questions come in, Hannah, if we want to go over those in our last few minutes here.
Yes. Let me go back over there. I was just responding, like typing out the response for a couple. One of them says, for the users, if it shows send registration email, does it mean the user hasn't logged in? Yes. So if you see that listed, you'll just want to click that button. It'll resend them the invite. If they don't see that invite, I would just double check to make sure that they have the correct email listed or that you have the right email listed. I think Sarah Beth mentioned this, but sometimes people will be like looking for a registration email in their school email, but you've added them as a user using their personal email. So you'll just want to double check to make sure those match up. And then let me read this question really quick. So Sarah Beth, this one may be a little easier to show for you. It says, how can you automatically go in and make sure people are not invited back? Our chapter doesn't recruit juniors. So after day one, how do we make sure that all the juniors are not invited back for day two? Maybe you could show them how they could look at how they could like filter it to double check that all of those people were marked regret, I believe would be
Mhm.
the status.
Yeah, so there's two ways to do this. If you're using party voting, it's going to be a little easier. If you're using party voting, when you go to upload your parties, the people that are juniors, their MINs, you just would not assign them a party in the list. And then they'll automatically move into that regret status. Or you can also manually do that. So, for instance, if we wanted to go in and see what class they're in and then sort them by class accordingly, you could go in on the juniors and hit or right click. You can right click on any part of the P&M, but just anywhere in that space, change status, and you can move them to whatever status released, however you want to put them in there, and it will update them accordingly. Were there any other questions, Hannah, before we wrap up?
Right now, that was it, but I will keep watching while you do the wrap up stuff just to make sure no other ones come in.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to put on screen here contact information. So if at any point during recruitment you need help, you can email software support at omegafight.com. During recruitment season, we do have 24/7 support for recruitment once we hit those peak times. And so just keep that in mind. Responses are pretty quick. Make sure you are keeping an eye out though, in case we need additional information, or if you can, when you send in whatever issue you may be having, whatever question you have, provide as much information as possible so they can help you out with that. And then also we looked at the Get Help link in OmegaRecruit specifically that you can click on to look at through any articles if you have just a general question. Those can be pretty helpful. And I think that is pretty much everything for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I don't see any more questions coming in. So I believe Hannah has answered all of those, but that wraps it up for everything. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day and a great recruitment.